Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In present lecture, we will discuss the effects of lesions of the midbrain. For having a clear concept of the effects of lesions, one must go through the last lecture to refresh your knowledge about the extraocular muscles, their actions and innervation. So midbrain lesions result in different syndromes. So number one, Weber's syndrome. Now, what are the features of this syndrome? Number one, ipsilateral third nerve palsy. Ipsilateral third nerve or oculomotor nerve palsy. And number two, contralateral hemiplegia. These are the main features of this syndrome. Now, where the lesion is located. Location of lesion. Now this is a section through midbrain. The interpedicular fossa, and on each side are the crus cerebri and substantia nigra. Substantia nigra. Then central canal, that is the cerebral aqueduct. The canal passing through the center of midbrain, known as the cerebral aqueduct, surrounded by central gray matter. The crus cerebri we divide into three parts: medial part, intermediate part, and lateral part on each side. medial part of crus cerebri. Occupied by descending tracts, that is frontopontine tract, then intermediate part of crus cerebri, traversed by descending tracts, corticobulbar and corticospinal tracts. And this is the lateral part of the crus cerebrus. Occupied by the paritopontine, occipitopontine, and temporopontine tracts. Now, what is the location of the lesion? It involves the medial part and adjoining portion of the intermediate part of crus cerebri. The lesion involves the medial part and adjoining part of the intermediate portion of the crus cerebri. Lesion location. Here in the central gray matter, oculomotor nerve nuclei, one on each side, from which the oculomotor nerves arise. Which traverses through the middle part of the retinucleus, substantia nigra, then medial part of the crus cerebri. On each side, and the oculomotor nerve emerges from the medial surface of crus cerebrus on the anterior surface of midbrain. Oculomotor nerve nucleus. Here, red nuclei. This is section through the midbrain at the level of superior calculi. Red nucleus. The nuclei of the superior calculi, right and left. Now, what is the cause of lesion? This was location of the lesion. Number 2, cause of lesion. It is because of infarction due to interruption with the blood supply of this area. It results from infarction due to vascular damage. Now, as far as the vascular damage is concerned, what are the vessels? For example, this is front view of the midbrain. Pons, medulla oblongata, which continued as the spinal cord. We know through the foramen magnum, right and left vertebral arteries enter the cranial cavity, and these two right and left vertebral arteries, they join together at the level of lower border of the pons. And join together to form basilar artery. At the upper part of the pons, what happens there? The basilar artery divide into right and left. Posterior cerebral arteries. Right and left posterior cerebral arteries. And here are internal carotid artery, section through an internal carotid artery on each side. From the posterior cerebral artery, posterior communicating artery arise, which take part in the completion of circle of Willis. Then from the internal carotid artery, anterior cerebral arteries arise, right and left. Right and left anterior cerebral arteries. And the right and left anterior cerebral artery, they join together by anterior communicating artery. Posterior cerebral artery, this is posterior communicating artery, right and left. So in this case, when there is lesion in the posterior communicating artery, for example, on this side, the affected vessels are shown. The posterior cerebral artery and posterior communicating artery. Here, when the blood flow is disturbed because of any reason, so this will result in the infarction of this area of midbrain. Which area? It will affect the medial part of the crus cerebrus, adjoining part of the intermediate part of the crus cerebri. Second, because the nerve fibers of the oculomotor nerve also traverses the medial part of the crus cerebri, so it will also be involved. Oculomotor nerve. Will also be involved in this lesion. So this was about the location and cause of lesion. Cause of lesion is infarction due to blood supply of this region, which is number one, the posterior communicating artery and posterior cerebral artery. It will result in infarction of this area. Next, what are the structures involved? When there is a lesion of this area, what will be the structures involved? Number one, third ipsilateral, third cranial nerve, fibers. As I told you here, during its course, the oculomotor nerve fibers passes through the medial part of the crus cerebri. So when the medial part of the crus cerebri is damaged, it will also damage the third nerve fibers. Number two, it will also involve these descending tracts which passes through the medial part and adjoining portion of the intermediate part of the crus cerebri. Descending tracts. In medial and adjoining portion of intermediate part of crus cerebri. So it will involve tracts. Which tracts? It will involve frontopontine tract and corticobulbar tract and corticospinal tract. So here the third cranial nerve fibers will be involved, and here the descending tracts, that is the frontopontine tracts, the corticobulbar tracts, and the corticospinal tracts, they will be involved in this lesion. Now, what will be the effects of this lesion? The effects of this lesion, effects, signs and symptoms. In case of Weber's syndrome, fourth was the structure involved, and number fifth one is the effects, sign and symptoms a result of Weber syndrome. Now, what are these? Number one, I told you, ipsilateral third nerve palsy. It will result in ipsilateral third nerve palsy. As the third nerve fibers, they pass through the medial part of the crus cerebri. These are also damaged. So when the third nerve is involved, it results in a third nerve palsy on the same side. And so what are its effects of this third nerve palsy? Number one, it will result in squint or strabismus. Squint or strabismus. This is a right side, and then it is left side. Now suppose right oculomotor nerve lesion is on the right side, so give you some features of the right eyeball. So what will happen? The eyeball will move outwards and downwards on the affected side. This is normal size side, so here the eyeball will be directed outwards and downwards. Outwards and downwards. is because that all the muscles, extraocular muscles innervated by oculomotor nerve, they will be paralyzed except lateral rectus muscle and superior oblique muscle. Lateral rectus muscle and superior oblique muscle. Why? Because lateral rectus muscle is innervated by abducens nerve and superior oblique muscle is innervated by trochlear nerve. Here there is damage only to the oculomotor nerve. So all the extraocular muscles of the eyeball, they will be paralyzed except lateral rectus muscle and superior oblique muscle. And the lateral rectus muscle is abductor of the eyeball. So because lateral rectus muscle, which is innervated by the abducens nerve, will be unopposed and it will move the eyeball outwards. At the same time, the superior oblique muscle, because it is innervated by a trochlear nerve and its nerve supply is intact, it will also move the eyeball laterally and downwards. So therefore, the eyeball will move laterally and downwards. Suppose in this diagram, right oculomotor nerve is shown. Now this way will be explained by this diagram also, as I drawn before the functional diagram. This is a functional diagram regarding muscle actions. Now this is suppose right eyeball and this is left eyeball. Right and left eyeball. So the superior rectus move the eyeball upwards and inwards. Inferior rectus move the eyeball downwards and inwards. Medial rectus move the eyeball medially. The inferior oblique muscle move the eyeball upwards and outwards, while the superior oblique move the eyeball downwards and outwards. This is normal side. Now on the paralyzed side, only the lateral rectus muscle is intact. Lateral rectus muscle. And superior oblique muscle is intact. Functionally, this muscle is downward below the eyeball, anatomically it is upward. So, because only these two muscles are normal, the lateral rectus supplied by the abducens nerve and obliquus superior supplied by trochlear nerve. Their nerve supply is intact. And the rest of the extraocular muscle, they are paralyzed because of involvement of oculomotor nerve. Therefore, you can compare it, the lateral rectus and the superior oblique, they will move the eyeball downwards and outwards. This comparison will explain this. So this was about the paralysis of the all extraocular muscles except the abducens, the lateral rectus muscle and the obliquus superior muscle, which are innervated by abducens nerve and trochlear nerve respectively. Because of this abduction of the and downward rotation of the affected eye, it will result in a condition known as the squint or strabismus. Then because of squint, number 2, what will be the other sign and symptom? There will be diplopia. It means double vision. Double vision. So two images will be formed. That is the it will result in true image and false image. True image by the normal sight, true image is because of normal sight, eyeball, and the false image is because of paralyzed sight. This will result in double vision known as the diplopia. Next sign of the oculomotor nerve palsy. The pupils are fixed and dilated. Fixed and dilated pupil. The pupils are dilated. You know, the oculomotor nerve is a parasympathetic nerve, and the parasitic nerve fibers running through the oculomotor nerve, they supply the constrictor pupillae muscle and the pupil constrict. Now here, in case of lesion of the oculomotor nerve, the parasympathetic fibers of the oculomotor nerve, they are also involved in the lesion, because these parasitic nerve fibers, they are part of the oculomotor nerve, and when the oculomotor nerve fibers are damaged, these parasympathetic fibers will also be damaged. Therefore, the dilator pupillae muscle will be unopposed, because dilator pupillae muscle is innervated by the sympathetic nerves. So in case of lesion of the oculomotor nerve, parasympathetic supply of the iris, that is constrictor pupillae muscle, will be paralyzed. But because the sympathetic nerves which supply the dilator pupillae is intact, therefore the pupil will be dilated and it will be fixed. So fixed dilated pupil is another very important feature of the oculomotor nerve palsy. Next, it will result in partial ptosis. Partial ptosis. Ptosis means drooping of the upper eyelid. So here in this case, you can see, compare with the normal side, the upper eyelid is dropped down partially. I told you that the levator palpebrae superior muscle of the upper eyelid, it comprises of the motor fibers, skeletal muscle fibers, and the smooth muscle fiber. The skeletal muscle fibers of the levator palpebrae superior are supplied by motor fibers of the oculomotor nerve. But the smooth muscle part of the levator palpebrae is supplied by the sympathetic nerves. So because here there is involvement of the motor fibers of the oculomotor nerve, therefore the skeletal part of the levator palpebrae superior muscle will be paralyzed, and it will result in the partial ptosis. Partial ptosis because the sympathetic innervation is intact, but because the motor nerve fibers supplying the skeletal part of the levator palpebrae superior muscle, they are damaged, and the skeletal part of the levator palpebrae superior muscle is paralyzed, it will result in partial ptosis of the upper eyelid. Next, what is the other effect of the oculomotor nerve palsy? That is slight exophthalmos. that is slight protuberance or prominence of eyeball on the affected side. The eyeball will slightly bulge out, slight prominence. This prominence of eyeball is called exophthalmos. Now you know there are 4 recti muscle coming from behind and inserted to the sclera of the eyeball in front. So these 4 recti muscles, this is suppose eyeball, and these are the recti muscles: rectus superior, rectus inferior, rectus lateralis, and rectus medialis. They try to pull the eyeball backwards, located in the orbital cavity. So because of oculomotor nerve lesion, all these extraocular muscles except the lateral rectus and obliquus superior, they are paralyzed. All the extraocular muscles are paralyzed except the lateral rectus and obliquus superior muscle. Therefore, these muscles will be relaxed. There will be loss of tone, and because these muscles are relaxed, they will cause the bulging forward of the eyeball. Normally, because of the contraction of these muscles and muscle tone, they try to pull the eyeball backwards and keep the eyeball in position. But because of paralysis, when these muscles are relaxed, the eyeball slightly bulges forward. Now, I told you what are the effects of this lesion in case of this Weber syndrome. Number 1, ipsilateral third nerve palsy, and these are all signs and symptoms of the oculomotor nerve palsy. And the second is the involvement or damage to the medial part of the crus cerebri and adjoining part of the intermediate portion of the crus cerebri, where descending tracts are involved. And what are those descending tracts? Frontopontine fibers in the medial part of the crus cerebri, and second here the corticospinal and corticobulbar tracts which are involved. So the second effect will be the contralateral hemiplegia. Contralateral hemiplegia. Hemiplegia of the opposite side. Oculomotor nerve palsy will be ipsilateral. If the lesion is on the right side, it will affect the right oculomotor nerve fibers. But at the same time, it will cause hemiplegia of the opposite side of the body, that is contralateral hemiplegia. It will cause paralysis of muscles of head, face, neck, upper trunk, and upper limb, upper extremity. So this is the second effect or feature of the midbrain lesion in case of Weber's syndrome, that apart from ipsilateral third nerve palsy, there will be contralateral hemiplegia. There will be paralysis of the muscles of the face, head, neck, upper trunk, and the upper extremity on the opposite side, opposite to the site of lesion. But the third nerve palsy is on the same side, ipsilateral, And these are the features of third nerve palsy. The patient will be present with squint or strabismus because of the unopposed action of the lateral rectus muscle innervated by the abducens nerve, and the obliquus superior muscle innervated by the tracheal nerve. Rest of the extraocular muscles which are innervated by oculomotor nerve, they are paralyzed. So it will result in squint, and because there is squint, there will be double vision called diplopia, and there will be true image, and apart from true image, there will be false image also formed in the retina. The pupil will be dilated and fixed. The pupil will be dilated because the parasympathetic fibers of the oculomotor nerve, they are damaged, and the sympathetic innervation of the dilated pupillary muscle is intact. Therefore, the pupil will be dilated and will be fixed. Little or no response to the light. Then there will be partial ptosis, upper eyelid, because levator papillary superior muscle is partially paralyzed. The skeletal part of the levator papillary superior muscle is paralyzed because of involvement of the motor fibers of the oculomotor nerve, and the sympathetic innervation is there still. And there will be slight exophthalmos, slight prominence of the eyeball because of paralysis of all the extraocular muscles of the eyeball except the lateral rectus muscle and obliquus superior muscle. And apart from this, there is another effect also, number 6. That will be accommodation and light reflex will be affected. Accommodation and right reflexes, these also will be affected in case of third nerve palsy. So this was the lesion of the midbrain involving the medial part of the crus cerebri and adjoining part of the intermediate portion of the crus cerebri, and involvement of the oculomotor nerve which traverses through this, result in Weber syndrome. So the next to it, the other syndrome, we will discuss in the next forthcoming lectures. So thank you very much.